In this video, I'm going to go over the expectations that we have for our fifth lab of the term, which is stratigraphy and seriation, or our dating lab. And so you're going to practice two different kinds of dating techniques. First, from the relative dating side of things, we're going to look at stratigraphy, and then we're also going to look at seriation and two different forms of seriation using typologies, in particular bead and projectile point typologies. So a number of different resources are available to you, including your textbook, the lecture notes. I've also posted two videos to YouTube for you that will help with this exercise as well, so please watch those. The stratigraphy one will be useful to watch first, and then the the frequency seriation battleship curve one will be more useful once you have completed collecting all of your data for this lab. So the scenario is that you've been given incomplete data sets for a number of sites located in this part of the Elbow River, which is the Permez Creek region. Each of these sites have been given a 4-letter and then 2-number designation, or 1-number designation it's called a Borden number, and it relates to not just the physical location of the site, but tells us something about the order in which the sites were found. And so what we're going to do is attempt to figure out the sequence of occupation for these sites via constructing a frequency seriation chart for bead typologies, looking at projectile point sequences for the area as well, or using what's called a index fossil method. And then we're also going to then combine all of this with the stratigraphy to again get an idea of what the possible sequence of several sites in this area would be. So I provide some background information on seriation, and then get you right into doing your frequency seriation of bead types. So the first thing you need to know is that we've provided you with a fictional bead typology for the sites in the area. There are 5 different types of bead, and you can see that we have information pertaining to what material they're made out of, the method that is used to make them, their shape. So you can see that most of them are either circular to rectangular discs, tubular, or round spheres or seed beads. Then we have 5 different colors. The colors have been derived using something called a Munsell bead color chart. And we provide some information below as to how these numbers were derived, and then we have some information about the sides of the beads themselves. So you can see that the first type, which are shell beads that are circular to rectangular discs that are white in color, have variable sizes, whereas type 5 is a glass bead with round to ovate spheres that are 4 to 6 millimeters. So these are our largest beads, and they are light gold to marigold, light orange to marigold in color, right? So this is how we can then distinguish our different bead types for the area. Well, what beads are we going to be looking at? Well, we're going to be looking at beads that are provided for you in the dating lab report, techniques exercise data. And so you'll see in this first page here that we have provided you with bead data for a couple of different sites. So Big Rock, for which we don't actually have any images, so you won't be looking at these. And then Spruce Pine and Little Creek, you can see the beads here for them. So you'll see that we have some white beads here. And so if I wanted to figure out what type they are, I would then go back to my bead typology table, and I would see that the white ones are my shell beads, variable in size. And so then what I'm going to do in this table is just double check the numbers that have been provided. So again, you'll see here, for at least for the first few sites. So again, you can't do this for Big Rock, but you can do it for Spruce, Pine, and Little Creek. And so you'll see that I have reported here that there are 15 type 1 or the white beads. So let's go back and check. And we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of the type 1 beads. And that corresponds with, and that's what's meant by frequency here, is the number or count of type 1 beads. Then we're going to see how many of type 2 there are. Well, type 2 are tubular green beads, And I definitely don't see any tubular green beads. Actually, the only other beads I see are these 3 orangey beads. So let's go back to our table and see, are there any orangey ones? Yes. So our round to ovate spheres that are made of glass which are light orange to a marigold, are our type 5. Are there any other ones? No, we have green, blue, and blue. So we'll determine that these are type 5. So we have 3 type 5 beads. And again, we go down to this table and we see that 3 type 5 beads have been reported. The next thing we want to check is the percentage that this represents. So you've done this in previous exercise. We're going to count up the total number of beads for the site, which is 18. And then we're going to calculate the frequency of these beads. And so what we simply do is go 15 divided by 18 is 0.83 or 83%, leaving us with 17% representing type 5. You're then going to go through and check to make sure the Pine data reported is correct, the Little Creek data is correct, and then what this will allow you to do by checking those first 3 sites is then complete the bead data for this table for these last 3 sites. So again, if we go back to the exercise data, you'll see that, so there's the Pine, there's Little Creek, and then we have our Foxtail, our McEwen, and our Muskrat Hill site beads represented. Okay, so you're going to fill out this table. So that's the first part of the exercise you need to complete. Once you have completed this table with the count and the percent frequency for each, then you can create this battleship curve or these battleship shape frequency seriation curves. And you're going to get something that looks kind of like this. And I give you a walkthrough in the video I mentioned on YouTube that's linked above on how to do this chart using something like Excel. So please check that video out. The next thing we're going to do is another form of seriation, which is called contextual seriation. And for this, we're going to look at projectile points. And what we have been told is that there are several different kinds of projectile points in our study area, and that's what's represented here in figure 3. So there's either plains triangular, plains side notch, or prairie side notch points. They have different time periods that are associated with them, and because of this, we can use them as fossil indices or index fossils or time markers. And so in this case, you've been given the projectile point data for several of the sites, but our data is missing for Foxtail and McEwen. And again, if we go back to the exercise data PDF, you will see that we have provided you with images of the Foxtail and McEwen points. So I would like you to look at these, compare them with this figure, and then fill out this table here. Okay. This table of data, then the projectile point data, you can then use to refine the sequence of occupation of sites that you're going to get from your frequency seriation or your battleship curve data, and will allow you to add an approximate time range or age range for the occupation of those sites. Okay. The last step we're going to do is look at stratigraphy and sedimentology. This one is a little bit trickier to do in a non-laboratory environment. So what I've done is provided you with some background on how, again, we collect the Munsell colors for sediments in our archaeological sites in our stratigraphy, and then also a table that we use to determine, basically give names to the sizes of different forms of sediment. And then what you're going to do is report this data for sediments at our site. Okay, so the reason why this is tricky is that getting good data or pictures of this sediment is a little tricky. So I've made it easier for you in that what I've done is I've described for you each of the 5 different strata that are found in sites in our area, okay? And I've just randomly given them a designation, a letter designation. So what the following pictures then show you in the exercise data are which samples are all basically the same size and color. So in this case, strata A is all spruce 2, pine 5, and McEwen 13. And so what you're going to do is find where strata A has been reported in the table. So it's been reported here first with Big Rock site with sample number 1, again, one that you're not observing, but we do see that spruce 2 is the same. And so we're going to copy and paste this information from from the sample 1, because we know, again, looking at this picture here, that sample 2 spruce has the same sediment. And so you're just going to do the same for B, C, E, and D. Okay. Once you have all of this sediment data compiled, you can then use this and the principle of association to figure out the relative ages of the sediment based on the material culture it contains. And so here we've linked the oldest known bead types with the oldest known projectile points, and then you're going to see that they correlate with sediment A or strata A. So basically what you're going to find is that A is, when found in other archaeological sites, must also then likely be the oldest strata in the site. Then we can use the law of superposition to figure out which strata are found above strata A in which sequence. And so you're going to do this by looking at what bead types are replacing the type 1 beads, which are our oldest beads, or the shell beads, and then what projectile point replaced our oldest projectile points, which are our prairie side notch points. And so what all this data is going to allow you to do, plus that frequency seriation chart that you're going to create, is answer the following discussion questions relating to the relative sequence of beads in the area, then the relative sequence of sites in the area. Then you're going to start to add in this other form of data, and then eventually what you're going to do is end up with a final sequence of strata and sites in the area. Okay. So basically the first document here, the dating techniques exercise, is what you need to read through and work through. And again, along with the supplementary and resource background information we've provided here, either in written form or in these 2 videos. You have this document that has images of all of our samples that I want you to look at to collect your data. And then finally, your last document is this, which is your dating lab report instructions. So you'll see that we want you to do a brief introduction. We want you to, again, fill out the first table here. You're then going to fill out this other table, finally the last table with the strata, and then you're going to answer these discussion questions. And then we've given you our mark distribution below. So please take the time to read through these documents carefully, to watch the associated videos, and then to contact myself or Dr. Prince if you have any questions. And just a reminder that this was given the extended due date of November 19th.